Urgent, Stephen Curry makes a strong statement about LeBron James' retirement. Stay until the end to find out everything. But before starting the video, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any important news from the Lakers. When Stephen Curry first heard murmurs of LeBron James potentially retiring, the reaction wasn't one of disbelief, but of reflection. After all, when you've shared the court with someone for over a decade, facing him in the most defining moments of your career, his absence on the court becomes not just a void in competition but a void in identity. Stephen Curry and LeBron James have been two of the defining figures of modern basketball. Their careers, though distinct in paths and style, have been intertwined by fate and fueled by competition. From the early 2010s to the late 2020s, they became the faces of a generation, not merely through stats and accolades, but through their impact on how the game is played and perceived. Curry, reflecting on LeBron's potential retirement, doesn't merely think of the end of a rival's career. He thinks of the end of an era. In his words and demeanor, there is no smugness, no subtle victory in outlasting a competitor. There is only respect. LeBron was never just another player, he was the constant force on the other side of the battlefield. Whether it was the 2016 NBA Finals, a haunting memory for Curry, or the All-Star games where they shared the same team, LeBron's presence was always imposing, always historical. To compete against someone like LeBron, Curry once mused in a private moment, is to understand greatness not just through numbers, but through the weight of presence. Those who watched them duel know what that means. It wasn't just the points, rebounds, and assists. It was the leadership, the will, the gravity LeBron brought to every possession. And it was Curry's own growth year by year, learning not only to face that force but to match it, and sometimes surpass it. Curry's basketball journey, from the unheralded draft pick to the game's most lethal shooter, found its crucible in battles against LeBron. Each encounter with James wasn't just a game, it was a lesson in resilience, adaptation, and excellence. And now, facing the twilight of LeBron's career, Curry doesn't think of personal triumph, he thinks of shared legacy. "I've had my best moments because I had to rise to the occasion against him," Curry might say. That's what competition is supposed to do, bring out the best in you. For Curry, LeBron's presence was like a mirror, not showing his flaws but showing what he could become if he dared. There is something solemn in Curry's tone when discussing LeBron's potential retirement. A kind of reverence. He knows the NBA without LeBron will be different. The league might move on, younger stars will rise, but the weight of that name, LeBron, won't simply vanish. He's been a symbol for so many of us, Curry has noted. As a competitor, as a leader, as a man who's carried this league in so many ways. And yet, beneath the respect lies a quiet truth. Curry knows his own time is approaching. Not yet. His shot is still pure, his handle still sharp, but the end is visible on the distant horizon. LeBron retiring reminds him that they are no longer the young faces of the league. They are now legends, aging in real time before the eyes of fans and foes alike. This first chapter in reflecting on LeBron's farewell isn't one of nostalgia or analysis. It's one of human connection. Two men, raised in different circumstances, molded by different pressures, ended up side by side in the same story. Not as friends, not always as allies, but always as constants. If LeBron retires tomorrow, Curry won't be the loudest voice to comment. He won't need to be. His legacy is already tied to LeBron's, written in final scores, MVP debates, broken records, and moments that defined a generation. And in the quiet of the gym, with a ball in his hands and the echo of memories bouncing off the walls, Curry will know. Part of what made him great was chasing, and being chased by, someone like LeBron James. It's easy to view greatness through the lens of rivalry, two athletes pitted against each other, one striving to outdo the other, to claim a larger piece of history. But sometimes that rivalry matures into something deeper. In the case of Stephen Curry and LeBron James, what began as a fierce competition evolved into a profound, unspoken brotherhood, built not on shared teams or friendships, but on shared purpose. In the early years, their encounters were purely competitive. LeBron, the king already crowned, was the measuring stick for the league's rising stars. Curry, the skinny guard from Davidson, wasn't expected to be anything more than a specialist. But as the 2010s unfolded, Curry's trajectory became impossible to ignore. He revolutionized the game with his shooting, reshaped the geometry of the court, and led the Warriors to a dynasty few saw coming. Suddenly he wasn't the student. He was a rival. The 2015 to 2018 NBA Finals are etched into basketball's collective memory not just because of the scores, but because of the storylines. Curry's Warriors versus LeBron's Cavaliers became the stuff of legends. Each man had everything to lose, and everything to gain. LeBron carrying the weight of Cleveland's dreams. Curry representing a new order of basketball dominance. Their clashes were as much philosophical as they were athletic. And in those moments, real respect began to take root. Respect, in the world of elite athletes, isn't handed out. It's earned through adversity, perseverance, and performance. Curry earned LeBron's respect not with trash talk or showmanship, but with quiet devastation. Threes from 30 feet, dazzling handles, a poise that belied his appearance. LeBron, in return, earned Curry's admiration through sheer will. The ability to dominate games physically, mentally, and emotionally, to drag teams to the finish line through force of personality alone. Their relationship began to shift during All-Star weekends and off-season events. Once confined to opposing sidelines, they occasionally found themselves on the same team, laughing during warm-ups, exchanging glances only two men with shared history can understand. We've both seen it all, Curry might reflect. We've both been doubted, cheered, hated, celebrated. That kind of journey connects you even if you never say it out loud. There is an ease between them now. Not friendship in the traditional sense, but familiarity, the kind that comes from knowing someone has been through your battles, even if they were on the other side. When LeBron passed the all-time scoring record, Curry was among the first to speak publicly about it, praising not just the milestone but the consistency it required. When Curry reached his own heights, two-time MVP, Finals MVP, breaking three-point records, LeBron responded not with jealousy but with recognition. I don't think either of us imagined it would go this way, Curry might say. But looking back, I'm grateful for it. For him. For what he pushed me to become. Their rivalry matured with them. Where once there was tension, now there is reverence. Curry knows that LeBron wasn't just an opponent, he was a standard. To beat him meant something. And LeBron, in turn, knows that Curry's rise forced him to adapt, to evolve, to extend his greatness. They sharpened each other like iron on iron. Now, as retirement looms in LeBron's conversations, Curry finds himself in a strange position. Not as the heir because they were peers. Not as the replacement because they play different games. But as the witness, one of the few who truly understood what it took because he took the same road. When Curry speaks of LeBron today, his voice carries weight. Not just as a competitor but as someone who has felt the full measure of LeBron's presence, and who has come to realize that, in some ways, their paths have always run parallel. Different styles. Different backgrounds. But a shared legacy that will be spoken of for generations. In moments of solitude, Stephen Curry sometimes reflects not on the games they played, but on the path that led there. Before the championships, before the iconic finals battles, before the debates about who changed the game more, there was simply admiration. Not as an equal, not yet, but as a young man watching another carve out a legacy in real time. Before Curry became the baby-faced assassin, he was a student of the league, and one of the players he watched most was LeBron James. LeBron's presence in the NBA was transformative. He wasn't just a prodigy, he was a phenomenon. His entry into the league shifted how players were evaluated, how careers were projected, and how brands were built. Curry, entering the league a few years later, witnessed firsthand the ripple effect of LeBron's arrival, not just on the court but off it as well. LeBron showed players that you didn't have to be a passenger in your own narrative. You could steer it. Curry often credits LeBron with being a model of endurance. The idea that greatness wasn't just about peak performance, but about sustaining excellence over time. To be that consistent for that long, it's almost inhuman, Curry once said in a private moment. The numbers are easy to quote. Points, assists, finals appearances. But what truly stands out to Curry is the durability, not just of the body but of the mind. Where most careers begin to fade after a decade, LeBron kept reinventing himself. Not just adding skills, but reshaping his identity within teams, adjusting his leadership style, finding new ways to dominate. Curry has mirrored some of that instinct, not through physical dominance but through innovation. And in that pursuit, LeBron has been an invisible mentor. Even when they weren't speaking, Curry was learning. Watching LeBron navigate media pressure, team politics, shifting rosters, and fan expectations taught Curry how to carry weight, and how to carry it with purpose. It's no coincidence that Curry's leadership with the Warriors became more vocal, more commanding in the years after his first battles with LeBron. It was as if he had seen what greatness required, and had chosen to meet that standard. But the lessons weren't only professional. Curry also admired how LeBron used his platform. Social justice, education, community impact. These were not side projects for LeBron, they were central. Curry, who also holds strong values and leads community initiatives, saw in LeBron a blueprint for what it means to be a complete athlete. Not just stats and endorsements, legacy in the fullest sense of the word. There are players who change the game, Curry might say. And then there are players who change the world around the game. LeBron has done both. And in this there is humility. For all of Curry's accomplishments, and they are vast, he recognizes the mountain that LeBron had to climb, and the new heights he opened up for everyone else. Without LeBron, the league might never have evolved to the point where players have the kind of voice they do today. Without LeBron, Curry might never have realized how far a player's influence could stretch beyond the hardwood. As retirement looms for LeBron, Curry finds himself not simply reflecting on battles past, but on the example that LeBron set. He made it possible for us to imagine more, Curry would say. More years, more impact, more meaning. And in those words is a quiet truth. While they competed against each other, they were never truly in opposition. They were carving different paths through the same mountain range, and LeBron, in many ways, had macheted through the vines first. What happens when the loudest voice in the room goes quiet? It's a question Stephen Curry found himself pondering when talk of LeBron James's retirement began to feel real. Not just media speculation or off-season whispers, but the kind of reflections that great athletes make when the physical cost starts to outweigh the fire. For over 2 decades, LeBron's name had become synonymous with the NBA itself. To imagine the league without him was to imagine a concert with the sound turned off. For Curry, the idea wasn't just strange, it was disorienting. LeBron wasn't merely a player. He was a presence. His face had been on every poster, every headline, every marquee for so long that it had become a kind of gravitational force within the league. When a player like that steps away, the floor doesn't just open for others. It tilts. Balance shifts. Narratives crack open. It's like taking the North Star out of the sky, Curry might say quietly. The rest of us have always known where we were because of where he was. To be clear, the NBA is full of rising talent. Luka, Giannis, Tatum, Jokic. The future is rich with promise. But Curry understands something they may still be learning. That consistency is what makes legends. And LeBron's consistency, his ability to dominate from age 18 to nearly 40, set a bar that isn't easily matched. His retirement wouldn't just mark the end of a player's career. It would close the final chapter on a particular kind of basketball era. For Curry, that realization is layered with emotion. On the one hand, there is a sense of survival. He's still here. Still elite. Still chasing greatness. But on the other hand, there's a loneliness to it. The mountain feels different when the climbers you've known for years begin to disappear into the mist behind you. LeBron's departure wouldn't just affect Curry's sense of rivalry. It would affect his rhythm, his mental framing of the league's landscape. So much of what we did, Curry might confess, was measured against him, whether we admitted it or not. And there's something almost sacred in that, to be driven by the shadow of another man, not out of jealousy but out of ambition. To try and build your own empire while knowing someone else already sits on the throne. Now, with the king considering stepping down, the throne doesn't feel as alluring. Feels empty. There's also the reality that, like LeBron, Curry is no longer the fresh face of the NBA. He too has grown into the role of mentor, elder, icon. LeBron's retirement doesn't just symbolize an end for LeBron, it is a mirror held up to Curry himself. A reminder that every era closes, every body breaks down, every fire dims, even if just a little. But amidst the reflection, there's also resolve. Curry knows that LeBron stepping away doesn't mean the end of greatness. It means the torch is not just passed, it's transformed. It means that now, the echoes of that presence will live in every decision Curry makes, every game he plays, every young player he influences. I don't want to replace him, Curry would say. I want to honor what he was, by being everything I can be while I'm still here. And that's the heart of it. The silence after LeBron isn't absence, it's invitation. An invitation for others to rise, to speak, to lead. And Curry, with all he's accomplished and all he still wants to do, may be the one best equipped to guide that next chapter. He knows it won't be the same. But maybe, just maybe, it's not supposed to be. For all the noise that follows basketball, the contracts, the highlights, the memes, the stats, there is one thing that ultimately outlives the rest: legacy. And when Stephen Curry thinks about his own, he cannot separate it from the man whose shadow he often stood in, and sometimes stood beside, LeBron James. It is a curious thing, legacy. It's not just what you leave behind, but how your story threads into the lives of others. For Curry, LeBron's story is woven tightly into his own. Their careers aren't two separate paths. They are twin spirals looping around each other, rising through the same golden era. When people speak of Curry's revolution, his limitless shooting range, his transformation of offensive strategy, they cannot do so without mentioning the resistance he faced. And often that resistance came in the form of LeBron James. It was LeBron who stood in the way of Curry's first attempt at a dynasty. It was LeBron who ended the Warriors' 73-9 season, delivering a historic comeback that would haunt Golden State and fuel Curry for years. But if resistance shapes greatness, then LeBron was the whetstone to Curry's blade. Curry has come to embrace that. You want to be remembered, he might say? Then you want to be tested by the best. And for me, that was always him. Their legacy is one of contrast but also of balance. LeBron, the unstoppable freight train. Curry, the graceful tactician. One bullied his way through defenses, the other danced past them. One redefined the idea of the all-around player. The other redefined what range could truly mean. Together, they represented a spectrum of basketball possibility, power and finesse, physical dominance and skillful innovation. And that's why the thought of LeBron's retirement isn't just emotional, it's monumental. Because when someone who shared your battles walks away, it forces you to reckon with what those battles meant. Curry doesn't just respect LeBron. He credits him for pushing him harder than any other player, for setting standards of excellence, for creating moments so grand that they're etched in the memory of millions, for being the kind of player who made you better simply by being on the court. When the two met in the 2021 play-in tournament, it wasn't just another game. It was a flashback to years of finals battles, but with time written into every movement. They were older, wiser, a little slower maybe, but still burning with that same fire. And in that moment, Curry saw something. Not just the man who had once defeated him, but the man who had helped define him. Their legacy is not a competition. It's a collaboration. In interviews, Curry has spoken of the idea that greatness isn't solitary. That real impact comes when greatness meets greatness, and both rise. That's what he and LeBron gave the game. Not one dominating force, but two titans who elevated the entire landscape by challenging each other over and over again. The kids shooting deep threes at the park? That's Curry. The ones chasing fast breaks and swatting shots into the crowd? That's LeBron. But the ones doing both? That's what happens when two legacies blend. And that is perhaps the greatest compliment Curry could give his longtime rival. Not through words, but through action and through the way the next generation is shaped by them both. Because long after the jerseys are hung and the cheers fade, what remains is the ripple effect. Two careers. Two icons. One shared story. And even if LeBron leaves the stage, Curry will carry the echoes of their battles into every arena he walks into, until it's his time too to take a final bow. When legends begin to fade into memory, it is not only the league that changes, it's the rhythm of the game itself. With LeBron James nearing the twilight of his career, a strange weight begins to settle on the shoulders of Stephen Curry. Not one of replacement, but of continuation. Of stewardship. He doesn't say it out loud, but he feels it, the responsibility to keep the fire burning. In locker rooms across the NBA, young players revere both LeBron and Curry. They've grown up with their posters on the wall, their sneakers on their feet, their styles embedded in their games. But now, with LeBron approaching the end, many eyes are turning towards Steph, not just as a star, but as the last active pillar of a golden era. They look to me differently now, Curry might admit in a rare moment of introspection. Not just as a shooter or a champion, but almost like a guide. It's a subtle shift, but a powerful one. Before, Curry was part of the wave. Now he's the bridge, the link between generations. While the league grows younger, faster, and increasingly influenced by social media moments and instant fame, Curry still carries the long arc of basketball storytelling. He understands the deep value of legacy, of endurance, of competition that spans years, not just highlight reels. And a big part of that comes from what he learned watching LeBron. LeBron, who never took shortcuts, who played every game like it was a declaration, who mentored without being asked, led without needing credit. Curry saw all of it, and now he tries to model the same. He chats with younger players more often. He pulls rising stars aside after games, not to lecture but to connect. He answers questions that years ago he might have brushed off. And when asked about LeBron's retirement, he doesn't give sound bites. He gives depth. It'll feel different, he says. It already does. For the league's future stars, it's easy to forget what a player like LeBron meant, because they didn't compete against him when he was invincible. But Curry remembers. And that memory becomes part of his mission. To remind them what greatness really looks like. Not just in the box score but in the burden. In the consistency. In the leadership. The truth is, Curry doesn't need to do this. His legacy is secure. His records will stand for decades. He could coast through his remaining seasons, collect his flowers, enjoy the love. But that's not who he is, and maybe that's because that's not who LeBron was either. Curry feels that if LeBron taught anything, it's that greatness isn't about how loud you arrive. It's about how long you last and what you leave behind when you do. So now, when Curry walks into an arena, he carries more than his own name. He carries echoes of the rivalries, the finals battles, the MVP races, and the shared respect that shaped an era. He carries the unspoken torch LeBron is slowly beginning to pass, not just to him but through him to everyone watching. It's not a burden. It's an honor. And though he knows the spotlight will shift and the headlines will eventually belong to someone else, Curry will still be there, not just playing but protecting a lineage that shaped him. The game goes on. The names change. But legacy? That lives in the hands of those willing to carry it forward. And Stephen Curry is ready. In the quiet spaces between games, in locker rooms after the reporters have gone, in hotel rooms before the lights come on, Stephen Curry sometimes finds himself thinking not about LeBron James the player, but about LeBron James the man. It's easy in the world of sports to turn legends into symbols. LeBron, to most people, is invincibility wrapped in a jersey. A walking headline. A stat sheet with arms. But to Curry, he's also a husband, a father, a brother, a man who's lived under pressure for more than half his life. And now, as whispers of LeBron's final NBA chapter grow louder, Curry feels something deeper than nostalgia. He feels empathy. They've both lived inside the same storm. Different roles, different styles, but the same unrelenting scrutiny. The same sacrifices, missed birthdays, aching joints, mental exhaustion. They know what it's like to be praised one night and questioned the next. What it's like to have your success treated as expected, your failure treated as betrayal. There's a kinship there, forged not in friendship alone, but in survival. And so, when Curry hears talk of LeBron retiring, he doesn't just think of a rival stepping away. He thinks of a man finally getting to breathe. He's earned that rest, Curry might say softly. He's earned the right to just be LeBron. What most fans don't see are the tolls the game takes. The hours of treatment. The cold tubs. The endless flights. The injuries you never report. The mental grind of always being expected to be the face of something. A team, a league, a movement. Curry knows all of it. And he knows LeBron has carried even more. For years they were locked in battle, not just on the court but in the court of public opinion. Every win compared. Every move dissected. But in the moments away from the noise, when they embraced after games or exchanged knowing looks across the court, Curry began to see the humanity beneath the rivalry. The same lines of fatigue. The same glimmers of joy. The same depth of purpose. What strikes Curry most, though, is how LeBron never let it change him. Even with the pressure. Even with the spotlight. Even with the expectation that he had to be more than a player, that he had to be an icon, a role model, a political voice, a businessman, a philanthropist. LeBron carried it all and still found time to laugh, to mentor, to raise his sons with intention. That, Curry often says, is greatness beyond basketball. So as LeBron nears the end, Curry doesn't feel a sense of competition. He feels admiration. He knows the world will talk about stats and rings and GOAT debates. But he'll remember the man who showed up every night when it would have been easier not to. The man who carried the burden of expectations from the time he was a teenager, and still became more than anyone hoped. He'll remember how LeBron treated people. How he spoke about legacy. How he stood for things even when it cost him. And above all, Curry will remember the nights they shared the floor, the battles, the tension, the fireworks, not as enemies but as co-authors of a basketball epic. Soon those nights will be memories. And when that time comes, Curry won't just tip his cap. He'll carry forward the man's example, in how he plays, how he leads, how he lives. Because behind the rivalries, behind the jerseys, behind the legacy, there is always the human story. And Curry, as one of the few who truly knows what that life feels like, will never forget the man beyond the number 23. There is a moment every athlete dreads. Not the final buzzer, not the last injury, not even the retirement press conference. It's the moment you realize, this part of the story is over. Stephen Curry can feel that moment drawing near for LeBron James. Not because of a headline or a rumor or an official announcement, but because of the silence that begins to settle around legends when the echoes start to fade. And as that silence grows, Curry prepares himself not with resistance, but with reverence. He's not sad. He's not scared. He's grateful. Grateful that he got to witness the full arc of LeBron James's career, from teenage phenom to grizzled veteran. Grateful that he didn't just watch it from afar, but lived it up close. Played against it. Was sharpened by it. Defined in part by it. Few players get to compete with greatness. Even fewer get to compete against it night after night on the biggest stage. But Curry did. Finals battles. MVP races, playoff duels. And in each of those, Curry found pieces of himself he never knew existed, levels he might never have reached without the pressure of meeting LeBron at the peak. That's the gift of rivalry, it reveals the best in you. Now, with LeBron preparing for his final dance, whether this year or the next, Curry reflects not just as a peer but as a witness to history. He's seen the way LeBron changed the game, not just the way it's played but the way it's thought about. The power of player mobility. The voice of athlete activism. The balance of being both an entertainer and a role model. LeBron made it all possible and in doing so, created a blueprint for players like Curry to follow and evolve. So when LeBron finally steps off the court for good, Curry knows the league won't be the same. The crowds will still roar, the lights will still shine, and the game will still go on, but something intangible will be gone. A presence. A myth made real. And yet, in that absence, something new will begin. Curry, older now but still burning with purpose, will take the floor knowing he's no longer part of a duo that defines the NBA. He is now a solo steward of that era, a bridge from the past to the future. He will lead with the lessons he learned from LeBron. He will inspire not just with his shot but with his voice. And when the next generation steps up, he will make sure they understand what came before them. Because greatness is not just about the plays you make. It's about the standard you set. For Curry, LeBron was the gold standard. And now, as one era closes, Curry prepares to guide the game into the next, not as a replacement but as a continuation. The final dance of LeBron becomes the first page of a new chapter, written by those who watched him move, learned from his fight, and felt his presence across decades. In time, Curry will take his own final bow. And perhaps, somewhere in the rafters, LeBron will be watching, proud, smiling, knowing that the game they gave so much to is in good hands. Because the truest legacy isn't left behind. It's passed forward. And Stephen Curry is ready to carry it, for as long as his body and his love for the game will allow. When the applause fades and the sneakers are hung for good, what remains? Stephen Curry, now increasingly aware of time's passage, begins to think of the game not as something he plays, but something he now builds. LeBron James didn't just inspire Curry with points and dunks. He inspired him by showing how far a player's reach can extend beyond the arc. Not the three-point line but the boundary between sports and real life. Curry has always understood impact. His style of play redefined how the game is approached. But LeBron taught him something deeper. How to use your platform to redefine how athletes exist in the world. Not as silent stars, but as active shapers of culture, business, justice, and community. And now, with LeBron slowly exiting stage left, Curry is stepping into the spotlight in a new way. Not just as a shooter, not just as a leader, but as a voice. He's investing more, not just in startups, but in schools, in youth programs, in content that educates and uplifts. He's listening more to the young players who need guidance, to communities that need visibility. And he's speaking more, not for attention, but for purpose. Legacy isn't just who you beat, Curry once said. It's what you build. LeBron built schools, platforms, and opportunities. He modeled what it meant to be multidimensional, an athlete who owns their name, their brand, their impact. And Curry, never one to copy, is finding his own expression of that same ethos. He's asking deeper questions now. How do I make space for others? How do I prepare the next Curry the way LeBron once unknowingly prepared me? How do I use my success to change more than just scoreboards? These aren't questions you ask when you're chasing your first ring. They're questions you ask when you realize you've already climbed the mountain, and now you're choosing what kind of trail to leave for those behind you. It's not about torch passing anymore. It's about torch multiplying. LeBron showed that you can lead on and off the court without compromise. Curry is showing that leadership can take new forms. Quiet integrity, thoughtful innovation, spiritual grounding, family-centered values. That's the future Curry wants to help shape. A future where kids don't just want to play like him, they want to be like him. A future where athletes are builders. Where the jersey is just one part of their identity. A future where competition isn't just about trophies, but about transformation. And as LeBron gradually shifts into his post-playing legacy, producing stories, raising sons, shaping public discourse, Curry doesn't see the end. He sees evolution. One great man stepping off the court to continue the work in other ways. Another great man stepping into that space not to replace but to amplify. Together they've shown that basketball is more than a game. It's a platform. It's a message. It's a movement. And as Curry stands in this new chapter, wiser, grounded, and quietly on fire, he smiles not with pressure but with promise. The game changed because of them both. Now the world might too. Time is the quietest witness to greatness. It does not shout. It does not cheer. It does not demand applause. It simply moves forward, carrying memories like whispers on the wind. Stephen Curry knows this better than most. He has seen seasons pass, dynasties rise and fall, legends take their final bows. And now, with LeBron James preparing to write the last pages of his story as a player, Curry feels the weight and the beauty of time's passage. It is a gentle reminder that nothing lasts forever, but everything leaves a mark. LeBron's legacy is a mountain, immense, towering, impossible to ignore. It stands tall in the history of the game, carved by perseverance, brilliance, and heart. But like all mountains, it will eventually become part of the landscape, shaping the valleys and rivers below. Curry's own legacy is still being written. A flowing river, carving new paths, shaping the future in unexpected ways. And in this moment between the mountain and the river, there is peace. Because legends do not die, they transform. They move from the bright lights of the court to the quiet corners of memory and influence. They become stories told by children, lessons taught by coaches, inspiration felt by anyone who dares to dream. Stephen Curry understands that he is part of this continuum, a link in the chain that connects past, present, and future. He knows that one day someone will stand where he stands now. Someone will watch him fade from the court and carry his own torch forward. And when that time comes, Curry hopes that person will remember not just the points he scored, but the way he played the game, with joy, humility, and relentless passion. As the final buzzer sounds on LeBron's career, and the cheers slowly settle into a hush, Curry will be there, not as a rival, not just as a successor, but as a fellow traveler on the endless journey of greatness. Together they have told a story larger than basketball, a story of human spirit, challenge, growth, and respect. And that story will echo forever. Because time may pass, but legends remain.